Hi and welcome to Love Laid Bare. I'm of course your host Dion.
Bear.
If you are new to Love Laid Bare, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn. Alternatively, website is www.lovelaidbare.com. Love Laid Bare is a podcast that goes live every Wednesday from 8 p.m. GMT, and we are in the business of helping you to understand and deal with your traumas before your traumas deal with you. So, on that note, there has been a video that's gone viral this week. Now, the video shows a father physically disciplining his 12-year-old daughter because she has allegedly had sex. I'm not entirely clear whether I've heard stories that he walked in the house and caught her. I don't know how he's found out, but he's found out. So the video shows him beating his daughter with a leather belt. I'm not actually going to show the video because I don't really agree with publicising abuse. So I will play the audio. If you would like to see the video, please feel free to go into Google, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you like, and I'm sure you'll find that somewhere. So I'm just going to kind of talk you through what happens in the video if you haven't seen it. So he says to her, you're fucking now. And as you can hear, he proceeds to beat her quite viciously, as you can hear, with a leather belt. So he said to her, do you want to be a hoe? So he just said to her, do you still want to be a hoe? Do you still want some dick? And proceeded to, like I say, beat her quite viciously with this belt. So there are so many things wrong in this video, and it's come quite timely for Love Laid Bare anyway, because next week I do have a psychotherapist who will be sharing with us her thoughts and her experiences, and she's actually also written a book where she speaks about why from a psychological and a physiological perspective as to why physical punishment on children isn't necessarily the best course of action. So I guess the question I want to pose to you guys today is, do we need to stop normalising this type of physical punishment? I think sometimes we need to be a bit clear on the terminology. I would call that beating. I would regard beating as abuse. Spanking, smacking, in the UK, it's not against the law to smack. I believe as long as you don't leave a mark, essentially. When it comes to, if you're quite dark, black skin, you can't necessarily tell how much of an impact you're making. I think one of the first things I want to address is, as parents, why do we feel so entitled that we can exert that level of violence on our child? Now, I don't want to get too much into that because we do talk about that on the podcast. And I'm sure there's probably many of you saying, it's my child, I can do what I like. Well, no, not really. You are not given the jurisdiction to inflict any amount of pain on your child that you see fit just because they're your child. And why would you even think that that's okay anyway? I've spoken to many people, my generation and above, who will still kind of maintain that, physical discipline is not unhealthy and it's a very good way of correcting child's behaviour. Yet, when you speak to them about their experiences with physical punishment as children, they are still very much traumatised by it. So there's a double standard here that I personally I see. You do also have those people. I think I was very much one of them who would be like, well, I got beaten. It didn't. I turned out okay. Did you? So, like I say, there are so many aspects of this video, even though it's only 36 seconds, that I feel like need to be discussed and are worthy of discussion. Now, I think one of the first things that kind of come to mind when seeing these types of videos is that I have not to date personally seen a video of a young boy being physically reprimanded because of sexual activity with a girl. I've still not seen it. Why are we so happy to publicly humiliate our girls who have engaged in some type of sexual encounter? Like I say, this is not the first video I've seen. I remember there was a video of a young girl in Jamaica. I think she was about 14, and apparently her mother had caught her exchanging sexual messages with a man. And I believe this was I believe it was in St. Thomas in Jamaica, where my parents are from actually. And the woman had like stripped herself down and she proceeded to beat her daughter with a machete. And again, this was filmed, it was placed online, and it went viral. When are the boys and the men who are engaging in this sexual activity with these young children, when are they going to be held accountable? Why am I not seeing videos of these boys or men being strung up and beaten and filmed and embarrassed publicly on social media? I feel like that there is still very much I feel like there's still very much an imbalance when it comes to how we treat our boys and how we treat our girls. I have a podcast and we cover those. We cover the differences in how, especially in I would say black culture, because I can only speak about my culture, particularly in black culture, how we treat our boys and our girls very differently. So the dad has found out that his daughter has engaged in some type of sexual activity because he keeps saying no. So yeah, you're fucking now. You're fucking. Now, as a parent, to be in that situation, naturally you are going to feel very angry. With every parent who has children, you have this fear that they could get pregnant, they could catch a disease, get off the road that this behaviour could potentially lead down to. You don't want a promiscuous daughter, or you shouldn't want a promiscuous daughter or son. You want a child that has the relevant values instilled in them. However, her having sex at the age of 12, whilst it's not right and it's not appropriate, it doesn't make her a hoe. His reasonings for reacting the way he did, to me, shows that he's probably never had a healthy conversation with his daughter about sex. And I'm just going to say it like that. He's never had a healthy conversation. Judging by the way that he is speaking to her, what we also have to remember is that a lot of the behaviours that we display and carry into our adulthood is learnt behaviour. So as parents, we need to be very careful about what we do to our children in front of them. So for example, children who grow up in homes where they've experienced domestic violence are more likely to end up in relationships where they either become the perpetrator or the victim, because they have learned that violent behaviour is almost okay, or they deserve it, because at the end of the day, they're still loved. So my kind of concern with this is that if her dad is beating her, could he not be particularly setting a precedence that, going forward in a relationship, it's okay for a man to beat you if he's correcting your behaviour, but he still loves you. Now, some of you might sit there and think, oh, well, you're being a bit extreme. Well, no, not at all. People's experiences and statistics show otherwise. I think sometimes in these situations, we might, as parents, have to ask ourselves, okay, where did I go wrong? Before you retaliate on the child, what is it perhaps that you didn't do to make your daughter feel that it was necessary for her to engage in sexual activity way before the years that she needs to be? Girls are hitting puberty at a much earlier age. I mean, if I think about myself, I started my period when I was 12, but it's now not unusual for girls to start their periods at the age of 8 or 9 or 10. You know, I think probably back maybe a generation ago, they probably didn't even start their periods until maybe 15. But again, everyone's individual. Now, at the point that you hit puberty, your body's going through all different types of changes and feelings and emotions. At 12 years old, she probably doesn't really understand what's going on in her body. However, she's seen enough on social media, on TV, in the music, that might make her feel like, well, if this is how I'm feeling inside, maybe I am grown enough to start kind of acting it out. Who sat down with her to explain to her that these are the feelings that she might be going through? Now, again, the video doesn't provide any context as to who she was having sex with. However, 9 times out of 10, I don't believe that a 12-year-old is openly going to initiate or engage in sexual activity without some type of coercion, unless that child had some type of sexual abuse before. Personally, I think for me, if I happen to be in this situation with my child at such a young age, questions are going to start running through my mind, because I'm going to want to know, okay, well, has something happened prior? What has sparked the urge for you to actually want to have sex? Now, when I speak to a lot of women, most of their dads never actually had a conversation with them about sex, about the feelings that are involved. I think a lot of people kind of got the don't have sex until you're married, or, if you get sex, you'll get pregnant, or you'll get AIDS, or something like that. It was all very fear-based, not educationally based. So again, I wonder, how much of a conversation has this dad had with his daughter? And I think, this should really serve as an example to parents and dads in particular, that, we are in an age where our children are exposed way more than we ever were. And we have to take responsibility in what our children are seeing. And if we can't always be there all the time, then we need to be able to provide a safe space for our children to actually be able to be open to talk to us about the things that are going on. Because quite clearly, this girl knew that she couldn't speak to her dad about having sex, or, the feelings she might be encountering, because she probably would have got just what she got. I've had several people on my platform who have come on to speak about how traumatized they still are and have been because of the physical abuse that was administered by their parents who loved them, who were trying to correct behaviour, or maybe it was their school who were trying to correct behaviour. They are still traumatized by that. And we need to understand that trauma is carried through in our DNA. Again, this is something that we cover on the podcast. I'm not going to go too much into it. I don't think this level of punishment is going to correct her behaviour. She's definitely going to have sex again. All he's probably done is probably pushed her away further, because she now knows that she can never come to him. This is now going to be such a sore subject. She can never really speak to him again, really, about it. I mean, not only has he physically abused her, so you want to be a hoe now. So you're verbally abusing your daughter now. You're making her now feel less than. You're making her feel like a dirty piece of scum of the earth for having sex. That's not the way you correct behaviour. By what you've done, that is not helping her to instill the values and the self-love within herself. No. You've made her feel ashamed, you've made her feel afraid, you've hurt her feelings, and you've hurt her physically. I'm not sure how we're going to rebuild this relationship back without maybe some intervention, or without the dad actually being able to step back and say, do you know what? This maybe wasn't the best thing for me to do. My next question is, who filmed this? This video was done with intent to embarrass a 12-year-old child. Why would you, as a parent, want to publicly, internationally embarrass your 12-year-old daughter? How is that? So you think that you are going to shame her into corrective behaviour? I'll tell you what you have now done. You have now put a vulnerable 12-year-old's face all over the internet. You have now made her even more vulnerable, because there will be a queue of young boys and men ready to scoop her up. This girl is now open to bullying. She's open to even further sexual abuse, unless, dad is going to literally be her 24-hour, 7-day-a-week chaperone, which we know he's not going to be able to do that. So again, parents, think, from the comments that I saw, it was kind of 50-50. You had 50% of the people saying, yep, whoop her ass, yes, that is way less than what I would have done. And you also had the other people saying, absolutely not, this is abuse. And there were some people saying, he should go to jail. No, I don't necessarily agree that he should go to jail, because we know what happens when fathers are not present in their children's life. Just check out the podcast I did this week with Aaron from Raising Boys to Men. If I ruled the world, what I would do, I would give him a caution, and I would impose compulsory family therapy for him, his daughter, and as a family. The repercussions of this are massive, and we need to bring that little girl back in. She needs to be able to come back in a safe space with her parents. And right now, I just don't feel like she's going to feel that. I think she understands that what she's done is wrong. Of course she does. She knows that she shouldn't have done it, but unfortunately she did. So now we need to help her to understand why her behaviour was wrong. Not beat it out of her. Let's speak to her, and let's dig a little bit deeper to find out why she got there in the first place. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Love laid bare.